I stopped talking to my wife after discovering she cheated on me and had mocked me behind my back, calling me a loser, especially after learning it involved a man I knew quite well. I'm 58 years old now, and I'd been married to the woman I'd always considered the love of my life for 27 years. Let's call her Megan. Megan and I first met during our college days, where we quickly became close friends. We had known each other for a solid decade before finally tying the knot. Out of those 10 years, 2 were spent as purely friends. Another year was dedicated to me trying to convince her to date me, and the remaining 7 years we spent together as a couple. During those 7 years, our relationship faced considerable challenges, including several periods when we had to live apart due to our career paths leading us to different cities. Despite the hardships of time and distance, we held strong, always finding our way back to each other. Megan was not only my wife and the mother of our children, but also my best friend since college days. Nobody understood me quite like Megan did, which made her betrayal all the more devastating. Just about a week ago, Megan and I attended a reunion organized by our college. Our alma mater hosts these grand events every year to celebrate the classes that graduated 36 years earlier. It's always quite the spectacle, featuring performances by famous singers and celebrities, making it a highly anticipated gathering. This particular year was our turn, and excitement buzzed among our classmates. We were all eager to see old friends and catch up on each other's lives. Megan and I felt especially proud because we were one of the few college sweethearts who had stayed together, still happily married after all these years. Walking into that event, I felt eager to showcase our strong, enduring relationship. Little did I know, I was unknowingly stepping into a situation that would forever change my life. The evening was genuinely fantastic at first, reconnecting with close friends we hadn't seen in years. It felt like reliving the best moments of our younger days until one particular individual approached us. We'll call him Travis. Travis was a guy who had been openly infatuated with Megan back in our college days, and pretty much everyone knew about his feelings for her. Megan had always stood out academically and socially, drawing attention from quite a few admirers back then, myself included. However, Travis was different from most. He wasn't just casually interested. He was persistent, almost obsessive, even after Megan and I clearly became serious. As a confident man, I never felt threatened by Travis's ongoing attention, which seemed more desperate than genuine. When Travis found out Megan and I got married, he actually texted me claiming Megan had made a poor choice and that he would have cared for her better than I ever could. Megan and I laughed it off as immature jealousy. That was the last we heard from Travis until the reunion. Seeing Travis approach after 36 long years, we thought surely he'd moved on. After all, we'd been married for 27 years. But surprisingly, Travis's fixation seemed stronger than ever. While greeting everyone with enthusiastic hugs, Megan chose to shake his hand instead, obviously uneasy about his intense gaze. Travis didn't hide his obsession, taking a seat directly across from Megan and staring at her openly, making everyone at our table noticeably uncomfortable. Attempting to lighten the atmosphere, I casually asked Travis if his family had joined him at the reunion. He replied bluntly that he was single. He mentioned having briefly been married when he was in his 40s, which ended quickly in divorce. Sympathizing, I said I was sorry about his marriage, but Travis melodramatically responded, "Yes, you should feel sorry. You took away the love of my life," and then burst out laughing hysterically. If I were younger, maybe in my 30s, I might have confronted him physically over such disrespect. But nearing 60, such childish confrontations seemed pointless. Besides, Travis wasn't intimidating. He was more of a loudmouth troublemaker, the type nobody would choose first in any game or sport. Even though everyone heard Travis's tasteless joke, most of us brushed it aside. Still, Megan visibly withdrew after that exchange. Dana, our longtime friend from college, and I quickly took Megan aside to reassure her. We encouraged her to ignore Travis's behavior and to continue enjoying the reunion. Megan was prone to anxiety, so Dana and I were determined to help her relax. But just as we started to calm Megan down, Travis appeared again unexpectedly, as if he'd been lurking nearby, watching our every move. Surprisingly, he apologized, claiming he didn't intend to upset Megan. He insisted his comment was actually meant as a compliment, emphasizing how attractive Megan remained despite the years passing by. I couldn't stomach Travis's insincere flattery and promptly told him to back off. He expressed regret for causing discomfort and pleaded with Megan to forgive him so we could all enjoy this final reunion together. Something about his words struck a chord, reminding me that it was indeed likely our last significant gathering. Deciding there was no sense in allowing old grudges to overshadow the occasion, I resolved to let it go and move on. Megan gently hugged Travis and encouraged him to finally move past his lingering feelings. We all joined in a group embrace before heading out to the dance floor, determined to enjoy what remained of the evening. Soon enough, the tension melted away, replaced by laughter and carefree dancing as others from our class gathered around. After some time, I saw Megan and Dana chatting with Travis nearby. He seemed relaxed, engaging them in lively conversation and even dancing in a silly, playful way that made everyone laugh. Seeing this made me think that perhaps all the drama had passed and we could genuinely put the awkwardness behind us. I kept an occasional eye on them, just to ensure Megan was comfortable. At one point, Travis leaned close, whispering something in Megan's ear. She smiled softly and nodded in response, easing my worry Megan would never react positively to anything inappropriate. About an hour later, I noticed Megan and Dana were no longer around. At first, I wasn't overly concerned because the reunion was busy, and we were all mingling separately, reconnecting with old friends. But as time went by without seeing either of them, I began to grow uneasy. I tried calling their phones but got no answer, figuring the loud music probably drowned out the sound. Finally, after around 30 minutes, Megan reappeared. Immediately, I sensed something was different about her. There weren't any visible changes, but her mood had shifted drastically. She seemed withdrawn and unusually quiet. Shortly after, Dana also returned, but it was clear something had happened between the two because they refused to even glance at each other. I assumed they'd argued about something minor, but Megan's insistence on leaving early troubled me deeply. Throughout the hour-long drive home, Megan remained silent. Each attempt I made to find out what had upset her was brushed off with vague responses. She simply claimed to be tired, yet her behavior was completely unlike her typically cheerful self. I asked if something had happened between her and Dana, but she merely responded with a curt no, offering no further explanation. Accepting that perhaps exhaustion had overwhelmed her, I decided to leave her alone upon arriving home. While our classmates shared joyful photos and cheerful messages online, celebrating the reunion and reflecting on its bittersweet nature, Megan quietly slipped into bed. By the time I joined her around 2 in the morning, utterly exhausted, she appeared to be asleep. I quickly drifted off myself. I'm not sure how long I'd been sleeping when Megan woke me up, softly sobbing into my chest. I immediately embraced her, asking if she felt emotional from reconnecting with old friends, but she didn't answer. She just cried harder. I held her patiently, giving her space to let out whatever emotions had built up. When her tears finally subsided, she shared something that completely blindsided me. She confessed she'd been unfaithful, with Travis of all people. My mind went blank, the shock leaving me unable to utter a word. My last memory of Megan that evening was of her dancing and laughing with Travis, Dana, and others. The three had disappeared for about an hour, and upon her return, Megan had insisted we leave immediately. Megan admitted Dana knew what had occurred and was understandably furious, explaining the coldness between them. Seeing my stunned silence, Megan began recounting what happened on her own. She explained how Travis kept apologizing for his earlier behavior, expressing deep regret for any embarrassment he caused. He showered her with flattering words, telling her that, despite his extensive travels and experiences, he'd never met anyone as amazing as her. Megan confessed that, in her state of intoxication, she found herself vulnerable to his compliments and eventually agreed when he asked her to step outside with him for a brief walk. Outside, on the peaceful college lawn, Travis poured out years of pent-up affection, passionately declaring how she remained the most remarkable woman he'd ever known. Overwhelmed and intoxicated, Megan admitted that she'd made a terrible decision in a weak moment and had betrayed our marriage. Travis reached out and gently took Megan's hand as they walked together, and in that quiet moment, Megan felt the tension she'd carried all evening fade away, replaced by an oddly soothing comfort. I won't share all the intimate specifics Megan described to me about their encounter, but she didn't hold back any details. She told me everything. She mentioned how a wave of guilt struck her suddenly, causing her to push Travis away abruptly in the middle of their interaction. Hearing her confession, my mind went blank, and my entire body felt numb. Megan kept trying to get a reaction from me, but I was speechless. Eventually, I quietly asked her to give me some space to think. She continued to apologize tearfully, begging for forgiveness. After some time, I finally suggested we sleep and discuss it further in the morning. She clung tightly to me, afraid of losing everything we had built together. I lay awake, replaying the entire night repeatedly in my head until one specific moment struck me, Travis's odd smile after Megan had returned from their walk. At the time, I dismissed it, but now I realized it was a smug, victorious grin, his triumph at finally capturing Megan's attention. Anger and disgust surged through me. I could no longer tolerate being next to Megan, the bed suddenly feeling suffocating. Noticing she'd fallen asleep after exhausting herself with crying, I quietly got up, gathered a few essentials into my backpack, including my wallet and laptop, and left her home. Leaving was painful beyond words. Megan had been my partner and best friend for 27 years, and the thought of living without her seemed impossible. But I knew her deeply. Had I stayed until morning, her persuasion would have likely weakened my resolve. So, I checked into a nearby hotel, blocked Megan's number, and disabled her on all my social media accounts. By the time I finally fell asleep, dawn had already broken. A few hours later, around 8 or 9 in the morning, my phone began buzzing relentlessly. It was our children, Megan and I have 2 wonderful kids, a son who's 25 and a daughter aged 22, both attending the same college. Reading other people's experiences online afterward, I realized my decision to suddenly cut contact with Megan might have been impulsive. Perhaps I could have been more strategic in handling the aftermath. Many people online shared stories about pretending to carry on as usual with their cheating partners while secretly plotting revenge. However, in my situation, this wasn't possible. Megan wasn't just a wife, she was my closest friend, someone who knew me intimately. Pretending around her wasn't feasible. She'd have seen through me immediately. The thought of Megan being unfaithful had never once crossed my mind, leaving me utterly unprepared for how to respond. When my children started calling, I realized I had no real plan. I had to speak to one of them quickly to avoid causing panic or prompting them to report me missing. I chose to call my son first, as he typically handled tough situations with maturity. Carefully, yet directly, I explained what had happened, that his mother had betrayed me with Travis, a man who had long pursued her. My son reacted with shock and disbelief, repeatedly insisting there must be some mistake, given how strong and loving our family always appeared. He pressed for details, but I knew explaining everything would only devastate him further. I gently insisted that there was no misunderstanding and asked him not to share this news until I was ready. I sent a quick text to my daughter, explaining I had urgent business and needed to be away for a while, which temporarily stopped the anxious calls. Now, my daughter believed I was traveling for work, while my son and Megan knew the truth about our separation. Over the following days, I turned to online resources to find a competent attorney and plan my next steps. During this search, I discovered several communities filled with people who'd faced similar betrayal. Many shared tales of revenge and retribution against their partners and affair partners alike. I could deeply understand their pain and anger, but the thought of seeking revenge on Megan was completely unimaginable to me. I still love her. I really do. That part hasn't changed. But no matter how much I care about her, I just can't bring myself to destroy her life. That's not who I am. At the same time, I know deep down there's no going back for us. Getting back together just isn't something I can do anymore. Too much has happened. Honestly, I do not know how I'm going to get through all of this. There's no playbook for something like this. I've got a ton on my plate. My work, my kids, my finances, everything. It's overwhelming. I did make an appointment to see a lawyer, though. That's scheduled for tomorrow. I'm hoping they can give me some guidance, help me figure out the next steps. Once I know more, I'll share an update. And to all of you who've been supporting me, thank you. Really. Reading your comments made me realize I left out a few important details. So here's a bit more context. Both Megan and I used to be management consultants. We had pretty solid careers. But once we hit our late 40s, we decided to step away from the full-time grind. Megan followed her dream and started writing full-time. I shifted gears and began working as a business consultant for startups. Being self-employed means I don't have a regular office. I either work from home or go to different client locations. One of you asked if Megan might show up at my workplace. Truth is, it'd be hard for her to track me down. I consult with multiple clients at a time, and my schedule is all over the place. So far, she hasn't been able to find me. I'm pushing 60 now, and Megan and I had spent years planning for retirement together. We had this dream of buying a quiet beach house in the countryside, a peaceful spot to grow old in. We were aiming to make the purchase next year. We even started looking at properties and spoke with a few sellers. Thank God we didn't actually buy anything yet. That would have made things way more complicated. Ever since I cut off contact with her, Megan's been trying to reach me constantly. I met with the lawyer the day after I posted about this, and he advised me to be upfront with our kids. They're adults now, so they deserve to know the truth. We also talked about splitting our assets. I've decided to divide everything evenly. This isn't about revenge. I'm not going to strip Megan of what she helped build. She's entitled to half of what we earned, and she worked hard for it. She's also entitled to the separation. She brought that on herself. I know her well enough to say this. If I gave her the chance, she might give up everything just to patch things up and keep our family intact. But I can't let that happen. I've made up my mind. While the divorce paperwork was being put together, I sat down with our kids. I asked my son to bring his sister to a restaurant without telling her I would be there. He agreed. The second she saw me, my daughter got emotional, hit me with a flood of questions. One of the first things she asked was if I had been unfaithful. She knew I had completely cut off contact with their mother, and it was obvious something serious had gone down. She was upset, really upset, and it tore me up inside. But I had to stay calm for their sake and mine. I told her, no, I had not been with anyone else. I slowly walked them through everything that had happened. My son had some idea already, but he didn't know about the steps I was taking next. When I told them their mom had been unfaithful, my daughter broke down. She had been living with Megan since I left the house, about 2 weeks at that point. She wrapped her arms around me and apologized for being angry. Both of them asked if there was any chance I'd give the marriage another shot. I told them I had already made the decision to move forward with a divorce. It was not an easy thing to say. Watching them cry like that, it cut deep. But they understood. They felt my pain. They promised to support me through this. I made sure they knew that while I was separating from their mother, I was not walking away from them. I would always be their dad. My daughter also told me Megan hadn't been eating or sleeping right. She was either crying nonstop or pacing the house like a wreck, trying to get in touch with me. Megan even drove to a few of my clients' offices asking if I had been there, but none of them had seen me in over 2 weeks. When our daughter asked Megan if something had happened between us, because I had never acted like this before, Megan did not answer. She just locked herself in her room and kept crying. I asked my daughter to stay with her mom until the divorce was finalized. I can sense that their sadness is slowly turning into anger. They feel betrayed too. I get it. This isn't just my loss, it's theirs too. Our family is broken, and we all know who caused it. But I do not want them to hate their mom. That is not what I am trying to create. I told them to keep supporting her, even if it is hard. And here's something that caught me off guard. A few days later, I got a message from Travis. He asked how Megan was doing. Then he said if I was really divorcing her because of the cheating, he'd be happy to take her off my hands. Can you believe that? I responded and told him Megan was free to make her own choices now. Then I blocked his number. I'm sure he just wanted to get a rise out of me. But honestly, I felt nothing. I did not marry Travis. I did not share my life, my love, or my trust with him. That was all with Megan, and she is the one who betrayed me. I am not insecure. If she wants to be with him, so be it. That does not bother me one bit anymore. The divorce papers were supposed to be mailed out today. Now I am just waiting on a call from my daughter to hear how Megan reacts when they arrive. I will share another update once everything is finalized with the divorce. For now, I still have a lot to take care of, sorting out my finances, planning for retirement, and, most importantly, making sure my kids are okay through all of this. Hey folks, I know it has been a little while since my last update. I am sorry about that. Life has been, well, it has been full. There's just been a long list of things to handle. But here's the biggest update. The divorce is officially settled now. When Megan got the papers, it hit her hard. Real hard. She completely lost her grip on reality for a while. Up until that point, I think she had convinced herself that I was just angry, that once I calmed down, I would come back to her. But those papers shattered that illusion. The moment she realized I was serious, she panicked. She begged my lawyer to set up a meeting with me. He refused. He told her she was already getting half of everything we owned, which, to be honest, was more than she deserved after what she did. But Megan said she did not want any of the assets. She said the only thing she wanted was me. Like I said before, I know her better than anyone. She asked to see me, just one last time before signing. She thought that if she could just talk to me face to face, or even over a video call, she could change my mind. And you know what? She might have. A part of me still loved her deeply. Seeing her broken like that would have messed with my head. But I did not meet her. I couldn't. I could not toss aside my self-respect, not after everything she did. She broke our family for what? For some fleeting thrill? I cannot live like that anymore. I will not go back to pretending things are okay when they are not. A little while after that, my daughter reached out to me in a panic. She said she needed to see me right away. She told me her mom's condition had gotten worse, bad enough that they had to admit her to the hospital. Megan had stopped eating, would not take any medication. She was refusing everything meant to help her. They had her on a liquid diet just to keep her stable. Now, I know how this might sound. Some of you might be thinking I am being cold or heartless, wondering if I ever really loved her. Let me tell you something. Unless you have experienced betrayal like this, you cannot imagine the pain. I did not just love Megan. I worshipped the ground she walked on. I supported her through everything. I was her biggest fan for nearly 30 years. She is the mother of my children. And truth be told, Travis was not entirely wrong. Megan is one of a kind. She is smart, talented, kind-hearted, and full of passion. She had every quality a man could ever want in a partner. That is why I gave her my best. I made sure she knew she was loved every single day. But she took all of that and used it to hurt me. She hit me where it hurt most. And never in a million years did I think she would cheat on me, let alone with someone like Travis. Not long after Megan received the papers, I got a message from Dana. She asked how I was holding up and wanted to know how Megan was doing. I told her the truth. We were in the middle of a separation. Dana did not act surprised. In fact, she said she already knew the reason why. Later, she gave me a call. During that conversation, she asked how I found out about the affair. I explained that Megan had come clean and confessed to me. Dana said she was sorry about what had happened and admitted she had warned Megan about Travis a while back. She told her not to get involved with him, but Megan had ignored the advice. Then Dana told me something that stuck with me, and it changed how I saw everything. Her version of what happened was a little different from what Megan had told me. According to Dana, the night it all happened, she and Megan had been dancing and having fun. Then Travis showed up and started getting a little too friendly with Megan. He whispered something in her ear. Megan told me he was apologizing, but Dana said it seemed more flirtatious than anything else. Dana got uncomfortable and tried to cut in, but then she noticed Megan started enjoying the attention. At one point, Travis suggested they take a walk. Megan turned to Dana, almost like she wanted permission. Dana said absolutely not. Everyone knew Travis had a bad reputation, and she made it clear she thought it was a bad idea. But a little while later, Megan slipped away and went with him anyway. Dana was still enjoying herself with other friends when she realized Megan had not come back. She started to get worried and went looking for her. And guess where she found them? In the changing room at the college swimming pool. Now, Megan had told me they were just out on the lawn talking. That was her story. But Dana saw the truth with her own eyes. She caught them red-handed. They only stopped because Megan saw Dana walking toward them, not because of some moral wake-up call. Until that moment, I had actually held on to a little pride in Megan for owning up to her mistake. I thought maybe she had at least been honest. I told myself it was the alcohol, the moment, the guilt, something that got the best of her. But no. It turns out, Megan did not stop herself. Dana did. And the swimming pool? That place is not just around the corner. It is a good 15-minute walk from where we were. You do not end up in those locker rooms by accident. Megan made a choice, plain and simple. After Dana finished telling me her side of things, she paused and asked me something. She said, "Do you think you could ever see yourself giving Megan another chance?" Since Megan had confessed everything early on, I believed, at the time, that she had been honest about what happened. What Dana did not know was that Megan's version of the confession did not match what Dana had witnessed, and I never corrected Dana when she asked if I might give Megan another chance. I just let the question hang in the air. But that moment changed something in me. As soon as I realized Megan had lied, even while she was at her lowest, I lost whatever respect I had left for her. Around the same time, my kids started giving me updates about Megan's condition. They told me she was slipping further into depression and had even shown signs of possibly hurting herself. That scared me, even after all that had happened. So I picked up the phone and called Dana. I explained everything, told her what Megan had said versus what Dana had told me, and how it had left me with no doubt about the truth. I asked Dana if she would go talk to Megan face to face. I figured maybe Megan needed someone she trusted to talk to her openly, someone who could say the things I no longer could. I also asked Dana to pass along a message. I told her to let Megan know that I now understood what really happened that night, and that there was absolutely no chance I would be taking her back. I wanted Megan to hear that clearly. It was time for her to stop hurting herself in some twisted attempt to win me over. I know how she thinks, and I knew part of her was hoping her suffering would draw me back in. Dana visited Megan and later gave me an update. She said Megan still wasn't herself, still weak, still struggling with the depression, but she was improving. That was something. My daughter confirmed it too. She said her mom had started to pull herself together a little. And the biggest step? Megan finally signed the divorce papers. That was a huge weight off my shoulders. Now that everything's settled, I've been tying up loose ends with my work and planning a solo trip. I've let go of the dream of settling down in one spot. Truth is, staying in one place feels suffocating right now. I need to move, to keep going. I know I haven't handled this whole thing perfectly. I have read stories here from folks who manage situations like mine with more grace, more strength. But I did the best I could. We'll see where the road leads next. I'll keep you posted. Hey there, everyone. I hope life's treating you kindly. It has been a full year since my last update. I wish I could say the time flew by, but to me, it has felt long and heavy. After I left the house, I spent a few months staying in a cheap motel. Later, I found a condo to rent while waiting for the divorce to wrap up. During that time, I started transitioning my consulting work to clients I could support remotely. These days, I work entirely from home or wherever I happen to be. As for the money Megan and I had saved for our dream retirement home, she got half of it in the settlement. I took my half and split it equally between our 2 adult kids. I figured they could make better use of it than I could. I do not need a house or a big nest egg. They are good people, and they'll be smart with it. Megan is still in therapy. Dana stays in touch with her and sometimes checks in with me, too. A while back, Dana shared something that caught me completely off guard. Now, keep in mind, Dana still cares for Megan, so she is not trying to badmouth her, but what she told me made me question everything I thought I knew. Apparently, after everything that happened, even after the affair, the divorce, the hospital stay, Megan went back to talking to Travis. Yeah, I know. Dana said Megan and Travis started chatting again, and at first, Travis told her he loved her. But then, once he found out the divorce was finalized, his tone changed. He basically ghosted her. Stopped calling. Stopped texting. Just disappeared. Megan was crushed. She reminded him about all the things he had said, that he loved her, that he wanted to be with her, no matter what. But the truth came out. Travis admitted that all that talk had just been sweet words. He never wanted anything real. He just wanted something casual, and he got it. He told Megan that he couldn't be with someone as strong-willed as her, that she was too much for him. And the worst part? He rubbed it in her face. He ended things by saying something cruel, something that hit her hard. He said he always thought she was the smart one, but it turns out he had managed to fool her, that he had outsmarted her. That broke her. She had given up everything for a man who was only ever playing games with her. According to my daughter, who had been staying with Megan ever since I moved out, that was the moment Megan truly fell apart. Over the past year, she said, her mom changed into someone she no longer recognized. Megan, who used to be strong and independent, is now insecure and emotionally all over the place. She constantly needs someone around, and she gets anxious if she is alone. She bombards the kids with messages and calls if they don't respond right away. She is clingy, controlling, and confused. My daughter said it got so bad, she could no longer live with her. And just like that, Megan, the woman I thought I knew so well, became a stranger. At one point, Megan even asked our son if he would consider moving in with her until he got married. He politely declined. She's been putting pressure on our daughter too, urging her to spend more time at home instead of going out with her friends or taking trips. But the thing is, our kids aren't kids anymore. They're grown adults with their own lives, and they can't be expected to live under her thumb. Every time my daughter tried to bring up Megan's behavior, how controlling and overbearing she was becoming, Megan would fall apart emotionally. She would cry and say she was terrified of losing them, especially after losing me. And to be fair, my kids reassured her. They told her they were not planning to abandon her, and they truly were doing their best to help her through the depression. But eventually, they had to be honest with her. They warned her that if she kept acting this way, they might not be able to stick around. That led to a few ugly arguments. At one point, the kids even called her out for not being there for them when things got really tough. That kind of behavior from Megan, it's just not what we were used to. I barely recognized her, and the kids felt the same way. Eventually, they had to confront her with the truth. She was the one who broke apart the home we had all cherished. The warmth, the stability, the sense of family we once had, it was gone. And she had to take responsibility for that. It hit her hard. I don't think she ever imagined hearing that from her own children. 2 weeks ago, my daughter packed up and moved out. She told me she had done all she could. But she couldn't keep putting her own life on hold to look after Megan. And I get it, completely. My daughter made the right decision. She needs to move forward, and Megan needs to take responsibility for healing herself. Now, I know some folks might feel a certain satisfaction seeing their cheating ex fall apart like this, especially in their late 40s or 50s. But I do not feel that way. I do not find joy in her misery. If anything, I feel sorry for her. Her bad choices led her here, and now she's stuck carrying that weight. I just hope, truly, that she can find her way back to the woman she once was, the strong, confident version of herself who never needed a man like Travis for validation or emotional support. As for me, well, I have been on my own journey. Over the past year, I have lived in 4 different countries. I've soaked up different cultures, tried new foods, and stepped into ways of life I never thought I would experience. At first, I was heartbroken that the retirement I had once dreamed of, with Megan by my side, was no longer possible. But over time, I found joy in a different kind of life. I met some amazing people. I saw things I never thought I would see. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Now, just to be clear, I haven't gotten into any new romantic relationships. I am not out there looking for love. But I am not closed off to it either. If something happens, it happens. And if not, I'm okay with that too. I will share more if anything significant comes along. Hey everyone. I know it has been a long while since my last update. Almost 2 years, actually. Truth be told, not much happened that felt worth sharing. I spent most of that time traveling to over a dozen countries and rediscovered my love for painting somewhere along the way. This thread started out as a way to process and share what I went through with Megan and the affair, and it didn't feel right to turn it into a travel blog. But now, something happened that I feel like I should talk about. Last month, I saw Megan again. After 4 long years. The reason? Our son is getting married. He called me a couple of months before the big day and asked if Megan and I could meet his fiance's parents together. At first, I wasn't sure. I told him I could just meet them at the wedding instead. But after thinking it over, I realized this wasn't about me. This was about showing up for my son and doing what a father is supposed to do. The bride's parents invited both of us to a dinner a week before the wedding. I hadn't confirmed if I would come, but in the end, I decided to show up. Seeing Megan again in that setting, well, it wasn't easy. Honestly, I would have preferred that only one of us had attended. But I understood my role and I wanted to be there for my son. When I walked in, Megan looked surprised to see me. She looked different. Her eyes gave away that she had been through a lot. She greeted me with a polite smile, but there was tension behind it. One thing that stood out was how much she had aged. Megan always took pride in her appearance. She kept her long, thick hair just the way she liked it, even as we both got older. But now, she looked noticeably worn down, like time had taken its toll on her a little faster. They seated us next to each other at the table. I am guessing no one had told the bride's parents that Megan and I hadn't spoken in years. But I handled it fine. I was not there to cause any discomfort. Megan was quiet for most of the dinner. She stayed polite. But when we finally had a moment alone, she made a comment. Said I looked healthier. Happier. I nodded and told her the truth. I felt better after removing all the toxicity from my life. That caught her off guard. I could tell. She glanced around the room, maybe to see if anyone had overheard. She then asked if I was seeing anyone. I dodged the question, told her my personal life wasn't her concern anymore. I barely looked at her during that whole exchange. My attention stayed mostly on the people around us. After dinner, when it was time to head out, I gave everyone a warm goodbye with hugs all around. But when I got to Megan, I just gave her a small nod and told her to take care. That caught her off guard, I think. She had stood up, probably expecting more from me, but I kept it brief. It all happened pretty quick, so I doubt anyone noticed anything awkward. Honestly, the moment between us was pretty uneventful. She seemed either nervous around me or just unsure of what to say. Maybe she was overthinking things, but I did not spend too much time analyzing it. I had other things on my mind. Once I stepped outside, my son came along and asked if I wanted to stay at his place for a few days. I appreciated the offer, but I turned him down, told him I'd give him a call later. Then I made my way to the hotel. These days, I do not really have a permanent home. I am usually on the road, and when I am back in town, I just stay at a motel. After 27 years of being a family man, it was tough at first living like this, out of a suitcase, but over time, I started to enjoy the freedom. It has become something of an adventure for me now. Aside from the family stuff, there's another update in my life. I have someone new in it now. Her name is Paige. We met 2 years ago in China. She was 23 back then, and just getting out of a bad relationship. That trip was her first time traveling alone, and we crossed paths while hiking up a mountain. Neither of us was looking for romance, so we just became friends. When our time in China ended, we headed to different countries. We kept in touch for the next 6 months, messaging and checking in with each other. Eventually, we figured we liked each other's company enough to start planning trips together. For the last year and a half, we have been traveling as a team. We have been to more than 8 countries so far. We did not jump into anything right away, romantically or emotionally. We gave it time, really got to know each other. One thing we both agreed on from the start, we are not interested in getting married. Right now, we just want to enjoy seeing the world, one place at a time. My kids know about Paige, but they never told Megan. They were worried it might upset her or send her into another depression. Anyway, when I got to the hotel that night, I gave my son a call. I wanted him to understand why I did not stay at his place. I explained that Paige had come with me into town and I did not want to leave her alone. I also told him I wanted her to come to the wedding. He was happy about it but also a little nervous, especially about how Megan might react. He brought his sister, my daughter, into the call, mostly to get her input. She agreed that Paige should come and meet the family. With the wedding just a week away, I spent that time showing Paige around. It was her first time visiting Ohio, and I wanted her to see some of what made this place home for me. When the wedding day finally came, the moment we walked in, I could feel Megan's eyes on me. She looked upset the second she saw me holding Paige's hand. I had already warned Paige that Megan might act out, but she told me she could handle it, and she did her best. But this was the first time I truly saw how controlling Megan had become since our split. She stormed over, grabbed my wrist, and tried to pull me aside for a private chat. I stood my ground and told her I was not interested in having that kind of conversation. She asked if Paige was my girlfriend or if I planned to marry her. I told her it was none of her business and asked her to leave us alone, since guests were starting to arrive and some were beginning to notice her tears and her anger. She said she did not care who saw or what anyone thought. She wanted answers right there and then. That is when our daughter stepped in. She tried to calm Megan down, told her to take a breath and walk away. But Megan refused. We pointed out that she was making a scene, ruining the wedding for others. She yelled that she did not care. That is when my daughter, normally calm and sweet, surprised everyone. She stood tall and gave her mother a firm talking to, strong, clear, and with no room for argument. I had never seen that side of her before. In a calm but firm voice, my daughter looked her mother dead in the eye and said, "Yes, Mom, I know you were supposed to walk into this wedding on Dad's arm and be the one standing next to him. But you made your choice. You decided to be with some guy none of us even know. So either accept that, right here and now, or I will personally make sure you are asked to leave before the wedding even starts." I almost stepped in, because it is instinct, you know, when you see your child in that kind of emotional state. But I held back. She was stronger than I ever could have been when it came to dealing with her mom. She was standing tall, her finger pointed, her voice steady, and every word she spoke hit home. That was the moment Megan finally let go of my wrist. Her fingers loosened, and I could see the change in her face. She looked at me, really looked at me, for about 3 seconds. In that short time, her expression shifted from pure anger to something that looked like betrayal, and then finally sadness. She did not say a word, but her face spoke volumes. After that, Megan turned and walked away. She never came over to meet Paige. Did not even try. But something good came from that hard moment. My daughter apologized to Paige for what happened. Paige just smiled, pulled her into a hug, and told her it was okay. I told my daughter there was no need to say sorry. I was proud of her. She had shown real strength, and I could tell the emotions were still fresh when she looked at me and said, "This is on her, Dad. We have all been through enough. She either moves on or leaves you alone." Megan had made things hard for everyone in the family for a long time, yet somehow, she still expected sympathy and kindness from people over the years. But the truth is, she burned a lot of bridges. Our kids never had a real family home to come back to for holidays or special days. That is something I take responsibility for. I know I played a part in that, and it is something I carry with me. As the wedding carried on, I could see Megan getting more and more upset. It was clear she was not handling the fact that the kids were standing by me. She spent most of the event off to the side, looking like an outsider instead of the mother of the groom. When it came time for the family photo, she did not even show up. A few days later, Dana called me and said Megan had taken the whole thing pretty hard. She felt humiliated seeing me move forward with my life while she was still alone. Her pride had taken a hit. I told Dana that my kids and I have had enough of Megan's drama. If she wants to keep going in circles, that is on her. As far as I am concerned, she can live however she wants. I just want to live the rest of my years in peace. Lately, I have been thinking maybe I should stick closer to my kids. Maybe even give them something we never had, a place to gather, a real family home, even if they're all grown now. That wedding made me realize time is moving on. Grandkids might be in the cards soon, and I want to be around for that. I am not planning to share any of that with Megan, and honestly, I am perfectly fine with that. If Paige is open to it when the time comes, we will take that next step together. Before I wrap this up, I just want to say thank you to those of you who have given me honest advice and shared your own stories. They meant a lot. If I can leave you with one thought, it's this: be loyal. Be faithful. Not just for yourself or your partner, but for your kids. They watch everything. They remember everything. And when it all comes full circle, it is the love and honesty that really counts. Life is still good. There is a lot more out there to enjoy.